tell me what you thought about the campfire. I assume you just watched it.
Yeah, I just watched it. I didn't really have like high expectations, so I wasn't really kind of like mauling as much as like my chat was, for instance, about it. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, there's the Gauntlet. I thought the Gauntlet was all right. My feeling on the Gauntlet was it isn't going to bring people that are currently bored of Diablo. Like, they're not going to log in to play the Gauntlet. People who are currently, I'm not playing Diablo, I don't like it. Like, they're not going to come back to play the Gauntlet. I thought that the Gauntlet looked kind of interesting in terms of implementation for the people that are already still playing the game. They'll probably enjoy it. It'll take some time for them. They'll try it out. I like that there's like, oh, you can try to target the chest, or you can try to target the shrines or whatnot. Maybe there's a little bit of strategy. I'm sure that it's a decent little arcade game mode. I don't know if it necessarily changes anything about Diablo for me.
I think my opinion is actually much closer to yours than the general sentiment of my chat. My chat, I just sent you a screenshot of a poll that I ran at the end of the campfire. It's not pretty. But yeah, a lot of my chat thought that the Gauntlet looked really boring and really stupid. I thought it would be mildly entertaining for at least a short period of time for a lot of the reasons that you said. Basically. I think it'll be enough for me to log in and try it for a little bit. But I mean, I've said this like 100 times. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm never going to change my mind about it. The whole point about it is it's supposed to be competitive. Okay. But I just think it's so funny when you release it 2 months into a season and the only people who can win are the people who have been grinding the game every day, have full 925 gear, have all of the Uber uniques. It's so stupid. All of the people that you described who might log into the game to even try it, if they're even interested in trying it, have no chance of getting a top ranking. But they might have a top chance, or they might have a chance in the first week or two when everyone has bad gear before all the blasters can just get everything. I can't tell you how stupid I think that is, man.
Well, I mean, obviously we agree about this because of our conversation preseason. But I thought someone in my chat made an interesting point, which is if it was, pushed back so that people have time, like they said, to, grind and prepare for the Gauntlet, but then it's presented as it's scaled for people that just entered tier 4 is what they said today. Then it's like, how do those two coincide? Did it take people this long to get to World Tier 4? Probably not. So it kind of seems like my take on is it seems like a cake and eat it too thing. They want leaderboards for people that are grinding the leaderboards. And so they marketed like, stay into the game. You're going to need to, you're going to need to farm to prepare for it. But then they launch it for the people that have already quit the season to come back and try it. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It just seems like an audience retention bait. So I think that part was an interesting play. I mean, I understand the marketing side of it. It's you make it so that the people don't have to grind weeks, but then you tell them they do, so that the people that are grinding for the weeks were still in the game, but then now the people that are coming back to it, like they can actually access it. So I don't know. Like I'm kind of in the middle with it because I actually think that was a pretty astute point.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense as a point about why it's confusing with like the target audience stuff. But when I think about it a little bit further, I don't think they could have done it in a different way. For example, I don't think they could have made the Gauntlet more difficult, because if they would have made it Nightmare Dungeon 80 or 90, then you are absolutely requiring that you have an excellent character. And, like you said, I think it's largely a retention play, and you are not going to get people to come back to the game. But again, with then simultaneously releasing it so late into the season, how are you going to get people to come back into the game? I don't know how this is going to work. I still thoroughly believe that you would have gotten way more bang for your buck if you would have released it in conjunction with a major Season 4 patch, which they hinted that there would also be an endgame and a full item rework. If you would have done it then, I think you just get a lot more value out of the release.
I mean, probably. The reality is, for me, this doesn't change anything about D4. It's a leaderboard. It looks kind of all right. It's like a little arcade mini game. I think that's kind of cool. I might try it out. I don't think even no matter how they implemented it, unless the actual game mode itself was extremely fun, the game mode that is being presented to me seems like something I will get bored of in 3 days. I don't think that I necessarily am a leaderboard person anyway. I don't think I'm necessarily mad at the implementation of it. And I understand they probably can't make it for people that are like, have 85 billion Uber uniques. Like, I get it. So like, I don't know. I'm not like mauling about this one. I think it's fine. I just don't think it's like a big selling pitch. And what we're looking at now is anytime that they come out with something on Campfire Chat, no one is looking for like, hey, here's a small update. Try this out. See what you think. Like everyone is looking for, we have changed Diablo 4. Diablo 4 is now completely different. We have itemization, huge launches, like, because people were expecting revolutionary change to want to log back in. And anything brought short of giant revolution in terms of gameplay here is going to make people upset because that's the only thing people want. So it's like this. Am I upset about the implementation Gauntlet? No, it's probably not content for me anyway. But I think the vast majority of people are going to be disappointed no matter what is presented because they want Diablo 4 to be good. And the Gauntlet isn't going to make it good. It's just a cool addition.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what you said. And something that you and I have discussed before is the Gauntlet would have been a lot more exciting if it had released at all the way that they said they were going to release it. They were hyping it up for so long, and then it's a 2-month delay. You lost 95% of the hype. It reminds me of what they did with D2R. D2R was a beautiful game. It was a beautiful remaster. It worked very well. It was actually like Vicarious Visions and Blizzard, some of their best work. They released it, and then they didn't have like season 1 for like 9 months, and almost nobody gave a shit about it. It's like they said, first they said the season was going to come on the launch, and it didn't. Then they said it would come shortly after the launch, and then it didn't come for like 9 months after it released, and they took all the wind out of their sails. To your point about Diablo, anything short of revolutionary change is not going to make people happy. Completely agree with you. And again, the beginning of the campfire, they like pulled up a PowerPoint and they were saying, Barbarian early game is going to get better. It's like, okay, wait, this is actually a major problem with the game. And then they're like, we buffed your generator skills by 10% and they generate 2 more fury. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I was asleep by the first 10 minutes into this stream. Like that, what I said in the beginning was what they should have done is start with some hype. I mean, I understand that we don't want to have another overpromise, underdeliver. I understand that. That was part of what happened and part of the reason people were upset. But the dudes look bored when they're on the stream. The information presented are literally a spreadsheet. It has like, I don't know. It's got like a marketing problem or something. There's no like a luster behind it. You know what I mean? It just kind of like, it seems like it's boring before they even show it. I was kind of like thinking they'd be like, Gauntlet, let's go, baby. They hype it up. I don't know. The gameplay was kind of cool, but it's 8 minutes straight 3 times in a row. And I didn't even hate the gameplay. I didn't think the gameplay was that bad. Honestly, that was all right.
That's what I thought.
I thought it was all right. I just thought it was like, I could see the people that are going to watch this as a basically an ad to come back to the game, because that's what it is, that it's just not going to do the job. It's not going to make people hyped. I don't know if they're trying to be like fair with, okay, present exactly what it is, not overhype it. If so, then I appreciate that. But I didn't think the Gauntlet was garbage, but I just don't think it's going to get people excited.
Okay, let me give you a scenario, because you're talking about revolutionary change. So they said, if I'm remembering correctly, they said in season 4 that they have the whole itemization revamp. I think you and I saw a preview of it many months ago. I've never seen anything since then. An itemization revamp. They also said that they're going to change the way that just items are acquired. I think we can all agree that farming Duriel all day is not the way to do it. They're going to change that. They also said that endgame activities are coming. There's going to be a major release for that. So an endgame system, the completely new stats, and the way that you acquire the items. Let's say they all do at least a 6 out of 10 on those 3 promises for the general audience. Is that enough of a revolutionary change for you, do you think, to change the course of Diablo 4's direction for the general public, or no?
For the gym, well, you said for me, and then you said for the general public, which I think they're kind of like, I will have different answers depending upon which one you want me to answer here.
Okay, I want both of them then.
Okay, so for me, I'm going to look at every change because I'm going to farm every bit of interaction on these streams, on the YouTube videos, etc. It's our job to farm. I will farm them. In terms of like actual audience, I think the audience needs to see, one, undeniable, knocked out of the park level of revamp in order for people to want to come back. This needs to either be on the itemization front or the in-game front, the way you acquire the front, something. There needs to be at one point, one of these cannot be a 6 out of 10. It needs to be an 8 or a 9 out of 10 at a minimum, because what is currently lacking is faith in the game. Because what happens is before the live stream even starts, everyone is already shitting on them because they're not on their side and they want the game to fail at this point because they just don't like it anymore. They're sick of it. And even worse, there's people that just don't even care. I'm starting to fall in that camp where I am just apathetic to the whole thing. It's like, maybe it sinks, maybe it swims. I don't care. You know, I'm starting to get to that point, which is even worse. And so I think what they need is not to do a decent job across the board, because the game is already a decent job for people that just want a decent game. But ARPG enjoyers for a long term don't want a decent game. They want a great one. So they need to do one of those things you mentioned exceptionally well in order to get people to have faith behind them and want to be on their side again. That's basically what has to happen. I think it has to be an 8 or 9 out of 10. So to answer your question, if you are going 6 out of 10 across the board, I don't care if it is a good 6 out of 10, people will still not like it. They have to do an 8 or 9 out of 10 on at least one of those fronts.
Do you think Last Epoch has hurt Diablo 4 even further?
Not even close. I don't even think I'll be honest. I don't think any of these hurt it. I think Diablo 4 is fucking farming. They're doing great. They sold 1 million goddamn copies. They got acquired by a bigger company. They're getting bigger. They're making more profits. I think these games like Last Epoch are dropping the bucket. I think Last Epoch's peak is probably not even close to Diablo 4's basement. That doesn't make the game better, but in terms of, are they winning? I would like the indie company to win. Is that what's happening? Probably not.
So, yeah, I think my opinion might be slightly different. I think you're right. And like people underestimate the magnitude of Blizzard and the success of Diablo. People don't understand that, you know, a few thousand people who are angry on the internet, that doesn't overshadow, you know, the hundreds of thousands of couch dads who don't give a shit about any of this, who still log in every day and still blast. But I have seen, at least within my community, a good number of people who have tried Last Epoch. Maybe they only played Diablo. They never tried PoE because PoE is too daunting. They're waiting for PoE 2. It's too complicated. But then they went and tried Last Epoch and they're like, wait a minute. It's like, you know, you go to your favorite hamburger stand in your town and you just go there your whole life. And then one of your friends tells you, why do you go here? There's like 3 places better. You're like, oh, no, this is just where I go. You know, this is where I eat my hamburgers. And finally you go try one. You're like, wait a minute. Okay, maybe this is actually moving the needle for me. So I don't know. I think I've seen some people in my community actually have a change of heart after playing Last Epoch. And I don't think it's just because of the quote unquote, you know, greatness of Last Epoch as a game. I just think it was accessible, which is something PoE really hasn't been. So I'm wondering if PoE 2 is both accessible and a monstrous game, if, you know, they might be able to rise to the top.
I think that's what PoE 2 is attempting to do, because we've seen that with things like gold respecing, where they've moved their stance on these. I think that Last Epoch is probably influencing GGG more, because GGG is the type of company that will be able to see these types of changes. I don't think Last Epoch is influencing Blizzard in the same way, because I don't think Blizzard is learning as quickly as other companies. So if the question is Last Epoch having influence in the ARPG market, then my answer to that would be, of course, and I agree. But in terms of like, is Diablo 4 bleeding out because of Last Epoch? Like, I don't really see that. But I definitely think Last Epoch is, I mean, it's making an impact in the ARPG community, undeniably. And we're even seeing that, like you're saying, with PoE 2. I would agree with that.
Well, there's no denying the reason. So it was Diablo 4's race to lose. They're by far the most famous name in the ARPG genre. I'm assuming, I haven't looked at the finances, but I'm sure that they had much more resources into the game than even grinding gear games, at least for PoE 1. it was really their race to lose, right? They have the most famous franchise ever in the ARPG genre. They essentially kind of invented the entire thing. The reason why Diablo 4 is in this state is certainly because of Diablo 4. It's not anything else. But I'm wondering if but I think all of these things like Last Epoch doing so well and people seeing a loot filter and 200 stash tabs and 3 different endgame systems and a way to craft legendary items that actually change their build. And they're like, wait a minute, like, am I actually going to log back over to Diablo 4? It's like you said, I'm going to need like a big bang over on the Diablo 4 side to completely revolutionize its entire landscape for me to even consider logging back in. This is another reason why, let me just keep repeating the same ideas. I don't understand why you release the Gauntlet at this stage. It needs to be a part of a massive package with Season 4 that completely changes the way the game feels in a positive way.
I just don't think we're going to get that. Like you say, if people will try other games, if they are the type of person that would try other games. If someone's a console only, obviously they can't play other games. But if someone is going to get into an ARPG with D4, like ARPGs, and play other games, they'll probably stay in other games. This has been happening since Path of Exile. So I don't think the people that temporarily try Diablo 4 for 20 hours are necessarily going to be going and playing all these other ARPGs, no matter how much better they may be. But if someone does play another ARPG because they're getting convinced into the ARPG genre because of Diablo 4, they're going to lose that audience share. I would agree with that as well. I just don't think the majority of the Diablo 4 players are people that convert to ARPGs in general. I think the majority of them are people that play the game, don't complete the game, put down the game, move on to Call of Duty or something. Like, I don't think D4 is the same category of like D2 players or anything like that anymore. I think they're into a much bigger category with much smaller retention time of players, and those players don't necessarily convert into the genre as highly.
So that's an interesting point that I don't know if I've ever really considered. So you're saying people in general don't really stick with one game anymore. People like change it up more often than they used to. I assume, just thinking about it without actually looking at any stats, that's probably true. First of all, it seems like the average human attention span shrinks day by day by day, just going through life. But also just the availability of information, right? I mean, how did I used to acquire video games as a kid? My dad would drive me to GameStop after I did my chores for a week, and he'd let me pick out one game, and I pick out that one game, and then I go play it. I don't hop on YouTube. I don't hop on Reddit. I don't hop on Google and check out all the new games. I don't turn on my PlayStation, and my PlayStation now is connected to the internet, and it says, look at these top 30 games that just came out. You want to try a free demo of this and that, and probably all of that makes people jump around more than in the past, right?
I would think so. Like if I had to guess, and again, we don't have the numbers, and I try to take my influence as a content creator out of it, because I know if I am looking at my YouTube comments and my Twitch chat, then I'm going to see a very skewed perspective of the average person, because the type of person that even goes onto YouTube to look up videos over and over again on the game they're playing are much more committed type of players, and we're having influence bias in the data. If I had to guess, I'd say the POW world dropped the player count of Diablo 4 more than Last Epoch did, for instance, which is why I have the take I do on how much it actually damaged the game. I think Diablo 4 is much more of the type of person, to give you an example, my brother, he works as a Fed, right, in the security area, and he lives out of a van and he plays on a Steam Deck only. He is not what I would call a metagaming Andy, okay? However, the 2 games he messaged me about was Diablo 4 and POW World in the last 2 years. And he was like, should I play Diablo 4? I told him no. He asked, should I play POW World? I told him yes. And the reason he talks about those games is because they were the most marketed games, period, in the last year. So I think Diablo 4 is hyperinflated from mass marketing and overselling of a AAA game that's a generic game. I don't think it's necessarily Diablo 4, except from the launch where people played and got disappointed that were previous Diablo players. I don't think D4 is necessarily like every PoE player, every ARPG player. Like they're just, I think it's got a lot bigger audience than was it originally catered towards, which is part of the reason it didn't do so good.
So the thing that I took from that particular section that you talked about is don't mess with you, otherwise your brother's going to come kill me. So I better be on your good side, like as much as I possibly can.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the warning. I read between the lines there. Yeah, it's like an ARPG. I mean, well, how do you define value? Like you said, and I make this comment all the time as well. The average player is far more casual than we are, than even our audience, because our audience is consuming gaming content and guides and videos. Pretty much automatically levels them up from just the average casual gamer. But usually the allure of an ARPG, which is the different from an RPG, is the replayability. You're supposed to kind of grind ARPGs. It's the kind of game where I guess any game would like to have high retention, but that's kind of like the main selling point of an ARPG. And yet people don't, in general, probably play games as long, don't stay as committed to a singular game really anymore. So it probably impacts the entire community, not just Diablo 4. But Diablo 4 as an ARPG seems to be heavily marketed. All of their development time thus far has been invested into people that really don't play very much, which is kind of sad for me. It's like a big paradigm shift from when I was a kid. When a new ARPG comes out that I really like, the thing that I'm excited for is to blast it and do the super uber content and to farm the rarest items. And when that was just not there for me in Diablo 4, it was a gigantic disappointment. Because they're attracting that kind of an audience, I would completely agree with you, both in terms of the magnitude of Pal World and because of some of the other things we're talking about. Probably had a bigger impact on Diablo 4 than last Epoch.
Yeah, I just think people are pretty spread. Because of the way that Diablo 4 was marketed. It's not... If it was a word of mouth thing, sort of like Power World was or something, then like I guess I kind of get it because it'd have to spread within that genre, but it's... I mean, it feels like Diablo 4 was like the next Call of Duty or something. It was sold to literally everybody, I mean, they have what, BTS doing a song for it? I mean, Megan Fox. It's one of the most generic marketing plays I've seen. It was very mass marketed. I mean, I don't know a single game in my entire time of playing video games that has ever had as much marketing as D4.
Yeah, it was a very, very broad strokes. I was hearing about it from everybody. Ryan, have you heard about Diablo 4? It's like, bro, it's literally my job. I know way more about Diablo 4 than you, buddy. And much to my dismay. No, I'm just kidding. All right, man. Well, I don't want to keep you all day. Is it time for Final Fantasy VII with the girlfriend? Are you excited that you actually get to play the greatest game ever made today?
I think I'll be watching the greatest game ever played. I think she's going to play it, but I'm going to play the piano mini game because that seems like a lot of fun. I'm assuming that's what you're streaming all day today. Oh
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be bad, man. Like, make sure you check in on me 20 hours from now. Make sure that I'm still alive. We're going for it. It's just full send.
All right, man. Well, enjoy your time with your favorite game ever made. And I got a question for you. Are you going to be playing No Rest for the Wicked?
Yes. That it looks real good. My chat seems super excited about it. Are you playing?
I am. I'll be playing that. So I guess
right.
I'll see you over in the No Rest for the Wicked land here in a couple of days.
One of these games when they release, we got to do some multiplayer and team up and try to dominate. Maybe we can get a full max roll team in one of these games and just
that'd be kind of fun.
Get a Red Bull IV and full send it.
We could do that for this one if you want. This is going to be one where it's just kind of like I don't know anything about it, so I'm kind of going in blind. I'm just big chilling.
I know absolutely nothing about it. I know the title of the game.
Same.
But I know a lot of people love it. So that's all we need.
All right. Well, hit me up for it. Thanks for the chat, bro.
Later, dude.
Later.